My dearest good morning to each of you. What a joy to be here and to say a special word of thanks to the whole team that I guess I have to give thanks to Matthew Potts for assembling, but who are taking such good care of me this morning and of my family and welcoming me back. Colleagues that I cherish, even though we are seldom able to be together in worship. Some family are here, some old mentors and friends. For me, this is a very special day, not noted on any calendar that I can find, but it's 45 years exactly this morning that I was ordained at the Church of Christ at Dartmouth College. And I was newly minted from HDS and from many, many mornings in Appleton Chapel for morning prayer and for glorious music sung by other voices, but that made this place, Peter Gomes in my era, home. It was a place you could always come when that exam looked terrifying, when there was no chance you were going to get a job, when the world was falling apart. And people here, that staff, this congregation, cared for us, took us for coffee, said inspiring things. That path had begun for me at Wellesley, where the first chaplain Wellesley ever hired, seated today here in the congregation, the Reverend H. Paul Santmeyer and his wife Laurel, welcomed hordes of us and showed us something about ministry, which was frankly a completely foreign idea to my professional landscape. So, with gratitude beyond what my words or this sermon have space for, and with a little bit of maybe pushback at the lectionary, which you've heard read, these texts given to us at the end of the year are meant to do exactly what Bishop Stendahl, our dean at HDS, said the morning of my ordination. He used to say it in class about preaching. None of your little stories. But that morning, from a text in Thessalonians, he preached about being a minister to the mysteries of God. I have a tape somewhere. I'll lend it to you. It was a great sermon. But here's what I took. I took a message that was actually delivered by a 4-year-old that morning. It was our custom to have a children's sermon. My dear friend Heidi went up thinking, what a celebration, and asked the kids, who was the most important person in church that morning? 4-year-olds always get it right. The child shouted, God. He and Krister were very well aligned. Krister wanted us to know that morning what he knew from years of ministry with divinity school students and people around the world, that it was the purpose of the church, but particularly the purpose of the church as the church year ends and the souls and the saints of the church gather, that very moment that Martin Luther picked to bang his theses on the door in Wittenberg, when everyone comes home and sitting in these pews, I see you with deep gratitude. But I see many more as well. 45 years is a long time. And for all of those saints who come home and who day by day by day, as Alana has just demonstrated, pray our way through the world together, taking to heart the cares and the concerns that maybe we feel powerless to do much about, but to where we can direct our eyes and to say, we see you, we hear you. Those are the messages of these texts this morning, which you'll hear a little bit more about in just a second. Our brother, 3rd Isaiah, whose text was beautifully read this morning, thank you, says a word of hope to a people returning from exile. But his word is not just beautiful poetry. He's really responding quite specifically to the fears of those you would think would simply be rejoicing. How great to be back home. But as I said to our reader just before service began, what is it to be coming home to Gaza? What is it to be coming home in Kyiv? What is it to be being pushed out of your home in Sudan? What is it to be waiting in a detention center in Burlington? All over the generations of the church's life, this question of coming home to God has required reassurance, because if we're coming home, we were pushed out of our homes. We were exiled in some way. It doesn't just happen geographically. It happens because of identity. It happens because of differences of theology, politics, culture, privation. You have your own list. You too probably somewhere have seen or cared deeply about a separation that you hoped could be mended with a homecoming. But homecomings aren't simple. When we get there, can I make you laugh? When we get there at Thanksgiving, what will the topics be? How many of us will comfortably talk a full range of politics or who knows what? And many of us will even orchestrate the table, hoping to put people who actually can talk to one another without there being an altercation. I have 23 first cousins and a very large family. It's always tricky. But it's also a lesson that if in my little family we struggle to keep peace, what in the world is it for God? And how should the church stand offering a witness to the mysteries of God, a way to direct the eyes of a fearful, hope-lacking world back to a center that holds? The prophet writes, "No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in the city, or the cry of distress." Just for a minute, try to envision that world. I don't know that I can. And I actually have spent a good amount of my time trying to hear the cries of distress in the world, trying to be less afraid of them, less certain that they would drown me, and more confident that going in the name of the church and of my sisters and brothers in faith, we could there in that place of distress make a difference. And all these years later, I'm here to tell you we can, and we are, and we do. But I'd be lying to tell you that I am not afraid of some of the depth of the need that calls us. No more shall there be an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who doesn't live out a lifetime. I know, for those of you who serve in medicine, where I teach, we all the time struggle against stories that are just not good enough in terms of the health care we can deliver, in care of the interventions that we can teach. And it pushes us forward. We strive to do better. But we strive to do better, often carrying in our hearts a loss, a failure. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. Palestinian olive groves have had little water in the last 3 years. The harvest there is not plentiful, but it often comes with the threat of guns from so many directions, even though those olive trees belong to the people trying to harvest. How do we make that right? What is the strife that tears even a grove of olives apart? They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity. What has it been for you, for me, to stare at folks from Gaza, folks from Sudan, folks from Kyiv holding their children in their arms saying, can this stop? Can this madness stop? I know better than to think we are the first generation to pray for that. And maybe we could even say we're making a little headway. But I'll just say personally, sometimes I'm not so sure. And that's when being together, to sing, to pray, to find again in your faith or your view, something that picks up my spirit and makes me think, okay, let's try it again. Jose Andres has figured yet another way to get food into Gaza, or to Lahaina, or to some other place where no one could imagine sandwiches could make it, let alone restaurant food. I hope you know his work with World Central Kitchen. So many are doing holy, sacred work, not just the church. And together in coalition, so much can be accomplished. But when I think of all the places where prayers might be offered this morning, perhaps in your family circle, surely for all the neighborhoods I've mentioned, but can we add Jamaica? Can we add all those in the Caribbean at the moment fearing a whole list of storms? How about that thing in Los Angeles they call the atmospheric river? For those of you who know California better than me, it looks like a source of endless mudslides, endless threat to the 101. And the fires only made it worse. Near and far, just up the street, just across Cambridge, certainly in Providence, certainly in the Harvard community, certainly at Brown, people are carrying such worry. And Isaiah asks us, can you not see I am doing a new thing? And Jesus says, asked for signs and a surety and a calendar, when will this happen? He says, well, let me tell you, if you think it's bad now, it'll get worse. Lots of things that you just take for granted, well, they're going to fall down and fail, and the end's not yet. And trust me, I am with you to the end of the age. Not a hair on your head will be lost. I've lost a few. I worry, but if Jesus has them, I guess I'll stop worrying. So my prayers, like the ones that Alana just beautifully offered, often start quite close to home. They start with the circle I know the best, and then I try to be guided outward to places that sometimes all I can do in my prayer is risk seeing there what I see and what I can learn more deeply. And I realize that this is a word at the heart of the life of the church. It is the word witness. So what do I witness? What do you witness? I'm going to take a flyer at this, and I promise I'm not going to sing. When I was a little kid, my parents had a record player. They're coming back into vogue, I understand. My dad loved music, and he especially loved the music that was sacred but that bordered on jazz, spirituals. I listened over and over and over again to an amazing black baritone, William Warfield, sing, "My Lord, what a morning." Perhaps you know that. The words are really simple. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. I was raised with enough Christian guilt, and I wasn't reading, I was listening, that I thought that word was M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. As in, uh-oh, God's coming and you are in trouble. The stars are falling, the end of the age has come, and you're going to be held to account. I was probably 8. Only into my teenage years, when choral singing got to be a favorite, did I walk into a rehearsal space and get handed a piece of sheet music, that very spiritual. Imagine my surprise to see no you. Oh, morning. That thing that dawns every day. That moment when hope arises. Today, what if our witness is to have one foot where mine was as a kid, with the courage and the willingness to mourn, to truly mourn what is being lost, what is aching, while with our other foot, our other sight, to see the dawning of what God is doing and what God has promised, including the fact that not one hair on your head will be lost. It's quite a posture. You might be sitting there thinking, God, it sounds like a cartoon, Janet, right? The one where the boat slips away from the dock and we end up in the drink. I do think there's risk. But I have to say that being with those in grief in the 45 years of my ministry has taught me more than anything I learned at HDS and most of the other things that I've learned along the way too. It is in grief that people find their foundations. It's in walking together in grief and loss, when we can speak honestly with one another, that real dawning and real hope can be found. So, if you can picture it, I am recommending a posture for your morning Christian yoga. Right foot in mourning with a U. Left foot poised, ready to step toward that new and bright place of promise that God has given to the church to bear witness to and to testify to in the bleakest of times. Not Pollyanna, not pie in the sky, but really with deep knowledge of loss and fear, and with specific honoring of all that people grieve, and yet hope that is ours to give because it's God's gift to us. I want to close with the words of a colleague, a new one for me. His name is Nazair Haloun. He's the program director for the Tantur Ecumenical Institute in Jerusalem. Perhaps some of you have visited. I hope to someday. Last week he wrote, "Climbing the grounds of Tantur reveals olive tree terraces that descend toward a desert beyond the eastern wall. Among nearby holy places such as the cave of Jesus' birth and the garden where he sweat blood and the roads where he shook the dust from his feet, Tantur feels like a sanctuary in its own right." This is my favorite sentence. "It stands on the seam between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. In the midst of ongoing bloodshed, its mission as an oasis for encountering sacred people, places, and traditions is more necessary than ever. Now, with a ceasefire in place, there is a measure of relief, but it's mingled with sadness and a deep uncertainty about what comes next. The current reality," writes Nazun, "didn't begin 2 years ago, and it's not simply a dispute between opposing narratives. Nor is it merely a complicated problem. It's the outcome of choices made by those in power, choices that too often avoid solutions. Palestinians' daily lives, whether Muslim or Christian, both in the territories and among Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, Israelis have not been immune either. History seems to loop without learning. Fear and uncertainty are instrumentalized. And yet, says Nizar, and yet, morning, and yet, Tantor's housekeepers and cooks wake early to come to work, leaving their homes in Bethlehem and in neighboring towns of Beit Sahora and Beit Jala. They cross checkpoints without knowing whether they'll be granted passage, yet they remain hopeful that the day will somehow work out, that despite intensified closures and restrictions, territories and the near daily appearance of new barriers on roads leading to Palestinian towns and villages, now hemmed in by settlements and the expansion of older ones. Even when our hands can do nothing, we can still bear faithful witness, and we can pray, and in doing so, turning toward God, we choose not to lean into fear, not to succumb to it, but to stand in hope that steadies us in God's presence and keeps us from collapsing until mercy has the final word. I leave you with his prayer. Join me. O God, grant us hearts that guard our common humanity. Open our eyes to see your image in each person, even amid conflict and harm. Give us wisdom and courage when brutality confronts us. And when we cannot act, keep us faithful in prayer and steadfast in witness, standing alongside all who suffer. Amen. In mourning and on this bright morning, may we hold this prayer in our hearts and know that the God of all mysteries and all hope is ever and always our companion in this life and in the life to come. Bless each of you. Amen.